Alrighty, hello everybody. We're gonna be just taking it slow today. Give me just a little bit just to get everything set up and we'll start here in a minute, alright? Hope everyone's doing good. Don't like that camera angle. Perfect. Alrighty. Without further ado, let's get into our articles for today. So, the first one we're going to be talking about is a little bit of the situation going on in Ukraine. Um, the US has been giving, just shoveling money into their war effort. And I know at first it may seem that that's, a noble thing. And I do believe that Ukraine, it deserves its own sovereignty. And obviously they don't deserve to be invaded by invaded by Russia and bombed to the freaking Stone Age. But the reason why the US is supporting them is not for moral reasons. It's all about the chess game that the US plays to try and maintain imperial dominance. So without further ado, let's get into the article. All right, so we have this article from the BBC, written by Barbara Platt Usher. Excuse me. Blinken files Blinken flies into goddamn, let's start that over. Blinken flies in to rally Western support for Ukraine war. I'll get there, I promise. All right, President Joe Biden wants to end America's forever wars, but he is pumping billions of dollars into one that could grind on for a long time. After 6 months, Russia's invasion of Ukraine is entering a challenging new phase. Europe is facing a hard winter of high prices and fuel shortages because of the fallout from sanctions against Moscow and President Vladimir Putin's suspension of Russian gas pipelines or gas supplies. Yeah, so if you guys haven't heard what's going on over there, it's truly freaking crazy. I covered it on the stream yesterday. In places like the UK and places in Europe who relied heavily on Russian gas, it's going to be a shit show this winter, man. I saw some figures about the UK that are projecting that yearly gas cost to heat a home is going to be around like 700 and something pounds a month. I said yearly, monthly, 750 pounds monthly, which is around like $800 a month just to have power in the home. So they're going to be facing a lot of unrest, a lot of protests, and obviously that's what Russia wants because they're sort of retaliating for the sanctions put against them by, mostly members of NATO and the US. So let's get back into this. Meanwhile, Ukraine has launched a counteroffensive in the south of the country to try to break a stalemate on the battlefield and convince struggling allies it's worth staying the course. Secretary of State Antony Blinken's visit to Kyiv was designed to underline the message by emphasizing the Americans are committed to seeing this through. Excuse me. He announced a further $2.8 billion in military aid during a meeting with Ukrainian leader Vladimir Zelensky after entering the presidential building through a series of dark hallways fortified with sandbags. He also visited children injured by Russian bombardments and toured a devastated section of a nearby Irpin, seeing firsthand the scorched buildings and scattered debris left behind by Russian shelling of the city. For Washington, of course, the stakes are bigger than Ukraine. The Biden administration and a bipartisan majority in Congress believes the Russian invasion threatens to rip up the rules of the liberal global order largely established by the US after World War II. And again, I've talked about this on the stream before. After World War II, the US kind of became the dominant force in the world, and that's obviously the way it's been for decades and decades and decades. But now the Russian war against Ukraine was kind of a catalyst that shook NATO and the US and really the world and made everyone question if that hegemony still exists. So the US, like I said, is really trying to shore themselves up and exert that power. And the way that they're doing that with Ukraine is they don't want the war necessarily to end, as the article will get into somewhat, but they really want a forever war. They want a war that will drain Russia and cripple them for the foreseeable future, so they and NATO can maintain their dominance on the global stage, which is slipping. Some analysts and lawmakers have described the goal as preventing defeat rather than powering a win, which is what I was just describing, and demanded the president be more aggressive. Others have said a win isn't possible and urged him to press for a ceasefire and a negotiated settlement. We are focused on helping ensure Ukraine prevails in this war, said a second senior U.S. official, so that when we get to the day where we move to a negotiated settlement, Ukraine is in the strongest possible position. Again, it's not about the Ukraine being in the strongest possible position, it's about the U.S. The U.S. doesn't do anything unless it benefits itself and the corporate freaking oligarchs and overlords that run this shit. His visit to Ukraine will give him a fresh feel, a fingertip assessment to try to hold together Western support for Ukraine heading into the annual UN General Assembly, said the first U.S. official. Allies need to present a narrative that the world is facing adverse consequences because of Mr. Putin's war. And like I said, the world definitely is, at least the traditional first war. I mean, all of them, but the reason why this is so urgent for the U.S. and NATO, the UN, all of those, like I said, traditionally first world countries, is that this is really the first time where the structures in place are starting to crumble to a point because of all of this geopolitical instability that they aren't sure if their dominance will last or if their dominance is coming to an end. Like, it's always about power politics on the geopolitical stage, man. It always is. That's what happens when you have people banded together in tribes trying to take as much as they can while leaving the world out to dry, especially third world countries. You know what I mean? The Russian president claims the adverse consequences are the result of U.S.-led aggression against Russia aimed at preserving an unjust world order beneficial only to the West. And he's not wrong. I mean, it's funny because both sides have propaganda points that are true. There aren't really any good guys in this situation. You know what I mean? And that includes Ukraine. You know what I mean? They have a huge problem with racism and Nazism over there, which, I mean, to be fair, is in a lot of freaking European countries. And like I said, even with those problems, that doesn't mean that Ukraine deserves to be invaded. Like I said, it's just, it's complicated, it's not black and white. I mean, the one thing that is black and white is that, come on, Russia shouldn't be going into Ukraine, killing civilians, and trying to revitalize some dead dream of a united Eastern Europe. It's just Putin, who was, a KGB agent, trying to reignite what he sees as the glory days of Russia. You know what I mean? But yeah, I mean, I wanted to bring up this article because the U.S. so far has spent $54 billion in Ukraine. Now, in the grand scheme of things, like, that's a very small percentage of the U.S.'s, yearly budget, but this spending goes to show you that they truly do not give a fuck about the economic security and happiness of the people who reside within the United States. They spend all this money on war and death and destruction to maintain their imperial dominance, man. When so much money has been wasted that could have went to programs that lifted people up, lifted people out of poverty, fed people in the U.S. And I'm not saying that the US shouldn't help Ukraine. I think they should, but the way that they're helping is just stoking the flames of war and could literally lead to nuclear annihilation. They're playing with fire. I want to take a look at what the US has actually spent all this money on. And I mean, it's not surprising. The vast majority of it, the vast majority of it is going to be in weapons. You know what I mean? This is a little bit nebulous. Economic support fund. I'm not sure exactly what that means, but you have that at 8.8 billion. Food assistance, 4.3, and this is the more recent bill. Military assistance, 6 billion. So a lot of money, and they're sending these thousands and thousands of weapons of mass destruction over there, man. And I'm not saying that they don't need these things to stave off the Russian invasion, but I personally don't think that it's in our place to be doing this. Like, the US is prodding at Russia, which is already run by a nefarious individual who does not care about the body count in his quest for some kind of misguided Russian glory. You know what I mean? It's insane, and the Russian government has already shown that they're willing to gamble with nuclear weapons on this and sending all of these weapons over. I mean, if that's not a declaration of war, I don't know what is. We need to be smarter about this. And like the article alluded to, we need to try to build bridges instead of burn them. We need to try to find diplomatic solution to these problems, because our leaders are still in that mindset of divide and conquer when it comes to the global stage. What they're thinking about is not how to limit human suffering. They're trying to see how they can use this as an advantage to stay on top of the global order. And like I said, they spent $54 billion on this. Now, what could we do with $54 billion in the United States? And like I said again, we can send them this money, and like I said, minus the military stuff, in my opinion, that's not the problem. The problem is they're willing to spend this money over in the Ukraine to play these, like I said, chess games, but they're not willing to spend. Let's get into it here. According to the Department of Housing and Urban Development, it would cost $20 billion to end homelessness in the United States. Just $20 billion. That is not that much for the United States to spend. And it's disgusting to me that we even have any homeless people in the United States. We're the biggest economy in the world. We're the richest nation on earth. And we have, I think, the highest homeless population and the highest amount of people in hunger in any developed nation in the world. It's disgraceful. It goes on to say that is a big number, yes, but let's put it into perspective. Americans spend $19 billion a year on unplugged appliances. Americans spend more than $35 billion a year on gym memberships. The U.S. government spent around $718 billion on its military in 2019 alone. So there you go, folks. That's how you know where your government's priorities lie. It's not about helping you. It's not about making sure that you have a life that's prosperous and fruitful. It's about maintaining psychotic control over the world. And there's more things we could do with $54 billion instead of spending all that money on death and destruction. How much would it cost in hunger in the U.S.? Joel Berg, CEO of Hunger Free America, has calculated the cost of ending hunger in the U.S. at $25 billion. Again, both of these things, how much is that? 20 billion, 25 billion. 45 billion to end hunger and homelessness in the US. And we can't do that, but we can spend $54 million on a war. We live in a crazy, backwards, upside down world, man. It breaks my heart that all this suffering is happening when it's just so preventable. It's disheartening, but I say it in all the streams that I do. The world is on the precipice of either being paradise on earth or hell on earth, man. And it's up to people who care and understand that this kind of order isn't sustainable, to push us into a direction of light and happiness and brotherhood, man. That's just what we need right now. And we see people, especially young people, stepping up to the plate and trying to get this world to be born, and it's totally possible within our lifetimes. It really is. And this obviously isn't a new phenomenon with the United States. They've been playing this game ever since they became the global superpower. A perfect example of this is the war on terror, where we spent $8 trillion and almost a million and probably over a million people dead for nothing, literally for nothing. All the war on terror did was exacerbate extremism across the globe, because the U.S. really didn't have a reason to go into these places except for, wouldn't you know it, oil and profiteering. And profiteering, global capitalist enterprise, it inevitably leads to this type of destruction, because it's a system that is profit at all costs. Now, we spent $8 trillion on basically a 21st century crusade, when shifting the U.S. to 100% renewables would cost $4.5 trillion. So we could have already done significant, groundbreaking, revolutionary progress to stop climate change and create a world where our children can live in. But we spent almost twice as much of that to have some kind of freaking holy war with in the Middle East, man. It's freaking crazy. It leaves you speechless, man. It's insane to think that we live in such a system that just so severely devalues human life and promotes human suffering in the name of imaginary lines and numbers, man. It can't stand. We have to do things to try and change this, you know? So that was our first story. Let's go ahead and get into our second story, which is actually really uplifting and really positive, in my opinion. So we have here at the Washington Post an article by Brian Pietsch. Newsom signs law with sweeping protection for California fast food workers. California Governor Gavin Newsom on Monday signed a bill that increases protection for fast food workers in the state, creating a council to set an industry-wide minimum wage and work standards. And we're going to go ahead and watch the video where he kind of explains the law. And this is from the Office of the Governor of California on Twitter.
Well, happy Labor Day, everybody. And I think one of the things that makes California a special place, by definition, is we're the 5th largest economy in the world. But that didn't happen by chance. We've long had a formula for success around growth and inclusion. So many states forget the latter part of that formula. But I'm really proud of California, and I'm proud of the men and women of organized.
Now, I will say that Gavin Newsom is not like a great politician. He's one of those people who just kind of goes with the winds and the polls and to influence his decision making, which is not necessarily a bad thing if at the end of the day good things get passed. But he's just a typical neoliberal stooge, just trying to use politics as a career instead of as a way to uplift people and help his community. But with that being said, let's just get back into it, because like I said, this is a fantastic law that California just put into place.
Labor, particularly on Labor Day, for their extraordinary work over the course of decades to empower workers, to give them voice and choice, and to fight not just for wages, but better working conditions. At the same time, we got work to do. At the same time, we recognize there are sectors of our economy where we're falling a bit short. And one of those areas is fast food workers. And I want to thank Assemblymember Holden in particular for AB 257 and all of his hard work, a bill that empowers our workers, particularly in that sector, giving them more voice, giving them more choice, creating a new council. And I'm proud on Labor Day to sign that bill and to shrine it in law.
Yeah, so basically, they have a law in California now that kind of gives fast food employees a seat at the table, as well as raising the fast food minimum wage to $22. So let's get into this and we'll break it down. The council will include fast food employees, worker advocates, franchisees, and government representatives. So you have all kind of parts of the cogs of the fast food industry coming together to make the workplace a little bit more equitable, which is absolutely fantastic. The legislation caps the 2023 fast food minimum wage at $22. The state minimum wage is $15 for businesses with 26 employees or more. After January 1st, 2024, the sector's minimum wage will be adjusted for inflation, capped at 3.5% annually. And now that is super, super important. I did a little calculation over here that shows you, oh, reset on me. I remember it. The 1970 minimum wage, I believe, was $1.60. That what it was? Yeah, that is what it was. That's the federal minimum wage, which was $12.22. Now, you'll notice something. The federal minimum wage right now is lower than $12.22, and that's because of inflation. For some crazy freaking reason, I mean, we know the reason because the corporations want to freaking basically have you as slaves. But the federal minimum wage does not rise or fall with inflation. So that's why you have so many states where people are literally working for poverty wages, starvation wages. So having a law that makes the minimum wage tied to inflation guarantees that the standard of living will not fall. All right. The law also enhances protections for workers against retaliation by their employers. The Service Employees International Union, which represents 2 million workers nationwide, called the bill's passage a watershed moment in the nation's labor history, giving more than 500,000 low-wage workers in the fast food industry a meaningful voice on the job. Excuse me. The IFA said the legislation could cause fast food prices to increase by as much as 20% in California, citing an analysis by the University of California at Riverside. Jesus, give me 1 second. That analysis found that a 60% increase in worker compensation could cause a 20.4% increase in prices. Now, I mean, I don't know about you, but I'm willing to pay like an extra dollar or two for a freaking burger if people are actually able to survive off of the jobs that they have to work the vast majority of their waking lives. And that's actually a pretty good ratio of cost increase to worker compensation, because at the end of the day, the cost, the raise in compensation is what, 3 times the price increase. So it doesn't really hurt anybody at the end of the day, those rises in prices, because you'll have more money to spend in the long term anyway, you know? If the minimum wage for the fast food industry rose to the maximum $22 per hour under the new legislation, it would be a 46.7% increase in compensation from the state's current $15 minimum wage. Such an increase could cause prices to rise between 13.6% and 17%, according to UC Riverside analysis. Now, the reason why I think this is so important is I think it represents a broader trend within the United States of labor really rising up, building coalitions, and finally realizing that their employee or their employers are not or should not be these little mini dictatorships where they work you into the grave and reap all the rewards while they sit there and suffer. The worker The workers are the people who create the wealth in this country and around the world, man. And workers are starting to realize that. They're starting to realize if they come together, they have more bargaining power. That's why unions are so important. And that's why I'm so happy to see a rise in unionization. We've seen those national stories with Starbucks. Hundreds of Starbucks chains have been unionized. Many uh, uh, Amazon warehouses have been unionized. So labor is starting to wake up, and that is a great sign. I know there's a lot of darkness and a lot of despair and a lot of uncertainty and anxiety going on in the world right now, but we have to recognize the good when it's there so we can have something to focus on and fight for, so us and our and future generations can have a future, you know? So this is wonderful. I hope to see more of it in the future. Okay, so let's get on to our final article of the day. And that is going to be about the Michigan Supreme Court vote. So let's get right into it. This is an article from CNN written by Veronica Strack-Willersi. Michigan Supreme Court orders abortion rights initiative to appear on November ballot. The Michigan Supreme Court ordered Thursday that a citizen initiative ballot measure seeking to enshrine abortion rights in the state constitution be added to the November ballot. The court's 5-2 ruling was issued the day before Michigan's ballot needs to be finalized on Friday. The order directs the Board of State Canvassers to certify the reproductive freedom for all petition. Let me start that over. The order directs the Board of State Canvassers to certify the reproductive freedom for all petition as sufficient and eligible for placement on the ballot. This comes after the board had deadlocked on a two-party line vote on whether to certify the ballot initiative last week, leading Reproductive Freedom for All to ask the Supreme Court to intervene. The board officially certified the ballot measure for the November ballot on Friday. The motion to certify passed 4-0. The measure will appear on the ballot as Proposal 3, which would establish an individual right to reproductive freedom, including right to make and carry out all decisions about pregnancy. Backers of the amendment say it will block Michigan's 1931 abortion law, which bans all abortions except to save the mother's life. We are energized and motivated now more than ever to restore the protections that were lost under Roe, Darcy McConnell, Reproductive Freedom for All campaign's communication director, said in a statement Thursday after the ruling. So this is fantastic, man. I mean, the Republicans really overplayed their hand this year, I think. They really showed how extreme and insane, not necessarily the average right winger is, because the statistics are actually surprising. Most people who identify on the right actually do support abortion rights, and they do think that this is extreme. Or if it's not, most of them, about 50% of them do, which is pretty significant, obviously. And this kind of attack on basic human rights, which is like a global laughingstock around the world, I might add, is really starting to get the politically disengaged into the fight. You know what I mean? Because this directly affects like half the population of people, man. Like, and as many other streamers have said, and many other pundits have said, if women can't find, or people who can get pregnant can't find adequate, safe ways to get an abortion, they're going to find illegal, unsafe ways to get an abortion. The only thing that abortion criminalization does is cause more pain and suffering, causes just dysfunction, man. And people know when they're ready to have a child and when they can't afford to have a child, you know? And these are the same people who will fight and fight and fight to take away your right to not decide what grows in your body. But the second that fetus becomes a child, they kick it to the curbs and say, pick you up by pick yourself up by your bootstraps, man. You know, it's sickening, man. But people are getting mobilized, man. The numbers on this petition is fucking crazy. It reads, in its staff report to the board, the Bureau of Elections estimated the petition had 596,379 valid signatures, about 146,000 more than the minimum required for certification. Now, it's hard. It's really, really hard to mobilize people in this way. That's over half a million people, almost 600,000 people who are pissed off at the government for being so freaking extreme, man. Um, Opponents, however, have challenged the proposed amendment over the. They are trying to say that this petition is not valid because they didn't space it correctly. That's how freaking desperate they are, man. It's so fucking stupid. Uh, in its Thursday order, the state Supreme Court pointed to a 2012 ruling that said the board's duty with respect to petitions is limited to determining form and content and whether there are enough signatures. Michigan law requires that petitions have the full text of the amendment after the summary and must be printed in 8-point type. The court said that regardless of the existence or extent of the spacing, all of the words remain and they remain in the same order, and it is not disputed that they are printed in 8-point type. So it's never about democracy with these freaking people, man. Like, do you see the ridiculous lengths that they'll go to try and push minority rule, dude? Like, it's fucking crazy. They try to fall back on the bureaucratic fucking bullshit instead of just realizing that they are the minority and they're in the wrong and letting democracy play its course. But that's right out of the right-wing playbook, man. I have some maps that show how, specifically in Michigan, the Republican Party has severely gerrymandered counties to get these unpopular laws and legislation put into place. You'll see in this map when they redrew it, they specifically do all of these crazy. This one isn't as severe as some of the more wacky freaking district maps, but basically they find where their demographic is and try to cut out a region so that only their voting block is within that district. So they inflate their own power, man. Take a look at some of these maps. Freaking ridiculous. They literally erase an entire Democratic region so they could maintain their grip on power, man. The Republicans are not, I mean, they have a decent amount of people who are their supporters, around like anywhere from like 29 to like 35% of the population like identifies as Republican, but that's still a minority, man. Most people are not Republican. And they use their Republicans play dirty, man, and Democrats aren't any better. I mean, they're just spineless, bureaucratic idiots who don't get anything done and just placate, and they act like they're woke without actually doing anything. But the Republicans, they may be shitty, but they know how to play politics, and they're competent at subverting democracy. You know, we'll see more here. You know. It's crazy. It's freaking crazy. All these freaking jigsaw piece puzzles. I mean, look at this district. It goes here, all the way down, and the only reason it is drawn like this is so they can squeeze out those extra votes, man. And in the vast majority of places in the United States, if we just made districts geographical instead of political, there would almost be no Republicans in office, man. This is how they get shit like abortion banned, through their political scheming and subversion of the will of the people. It's truly sickening, but people are starting to wake up to the bullshit, man. All over the country, people are starting to register to vote in historic numbers, man. We have two articles. We're not going to read them, but I just wanted to show you that it's not just Michigan who got their ass kicked into gear after this ruling on Roe v. Wade. We see in Ohio, which is a usually more conservative state. You see a surge in women registering to vote after abortion access has been restricted. And you see here, I'm not going to pay for this. You see in the Houston Chronicle, young Democrats are flocking to register to vote in Texas after abortion ruling. Um, so they're pissing people off, especially young people, and they kind of did our jobs for us in a fucked up way, you know? People like me, people who are a little bit more politically active and looking into all this stuff, try to try to talk to people about how politics is serious, how it affects everyone. It's not just some game, man. Like it can affect you severely if you just let the political machine run without democratic input, you know? So it's good to see people coming together trying to get these fucked up people out of office so we can have actual human rights in the United States. And I think this is a trend that's going to continue and continue as the older generation dies off. I know that sounds fucked up, but you know, they didn't have the same access to information and the same uh amount of information that we have on top of their only real news sources really just being propaganda outlets like like CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, and the State Department, you know, who are just traditionally very conservative, very regressive, and very authoritarian, you know. But it's good to see people just, like I said, sticking together and trying to fight for our rights. That's what it's all about, man. So all right, those are our three articles. Hope you guys enjoyed that. Hope it was informative. And that was perfect timing because my camera just died. Give me 1 second. Bam. I was prepared. If you're not following, please go ahead and follow, please. I try to stream every day on the weekdays. We go through 3 articles and then we go into some reaction videos. It should be fun. I'm going to take a little 5-minute break and we will be back. So let's say 9:02. We're going to get in some videos. The first video we're going to watch is Alex Jones fucking freaking out, like being even more crazy than usual when he's confronted with actual real questions from Channel 5. And yeah, so just give me about like 4 or 5 minutes and we'll get right into it. Thanks so much. All right, and we are back. We're gonna get into very, very juicy contents. I know why. I know that this is why you guys come here. I gotta give the piggies their slop. Don't worry, I love the slop too, man. That juicy fucking conflict. Let's get right into it, man. So this video is fucking crazy. Everybody knows who Alex Jones is, man. He's like the crazy fucking. I don't. I'm not sure if he's crazy, if he actually believes the stuff he's saying, or if he's just playing to his audience. I have a tendency to believe it's like a mix of both. It's kind of funny. The first time I had any kind of, the first time I saw Alex Jones was in this really weird, but really good, like semi documentary movie thing where they took clips from him along with like other clips from other like prominent like intellectuals. This weird animated thing. I don't know. Like, and the shit that he was saying in the movie, I was like, oh shit, this sounds pretty fucking good. Who is this guy? He was talking about just shit in general about uh like removing like the global order from power and rising up as and people coming together and getting rid of the shackles of domination. And that's what he was talking about in the movie, and I was like, shit, okay, let's look this guy up. And then I was like, oh. So let's get into the video.
Do you feel responsible for what happened to the Sandy Hook families?
Yes, I killed the children.
But beyond that,
Getting right into it, dude. He's like, yep.
No, I mean, I went in that school, I pulled a gun out, and I shot every one of them myself. I mean, I'm guilty. It's true.
no. But I mean,
No, let's just. Do I feel responsible that someone that played shoot 'em up video games on a bunch of drugs went and killed a bunch of kids, and then the internet questioned it, and I covered that? No, I don't feel responsible, and I don't apologize anymore. I'm done. I don't apologize. I killed the kids,
bro.
was there a definitive?
I killed them.
He said, "I don't apologize. I killed the kids, man." This guy's going just full on goofy mode, dude. He doesn't give a fuck anymore. He got sued for fucking millions and millions. He's like, dude. I mean, he makes a fuck ton of money. He may have lost millions of dollars in that lawsuit, but it's just literally like a chip on the ice block for him. It means nothing, dude. That's why he's on here acting like this, man. Like, now he's like, oh shit, well, that wasn't so bad. I'll just fucking do whatever now. I'll go full on fucking crazy, And I really do think, in all seriousness, he plays up to his audience to bring in the bucks, man. It's all about the money, bro.
I killed him.
You didn't kill him.
No, I did.
No, you didn't.
No, everybody said no. I killed him.
He's like, you didn't really.
I killed him. I already admit it. I did it. I killed him. I'm the bad guy. I'm the devil. Get rid of the First Amendment. Can we move on to other topics?
I don't think.
I killed him.
And it's funny because this is really the only time where he's been confronted in such a direct way besides the trial, man. Like, he went on other places and they threw him a bunch of softballs and all this shit. Like, it's nuts, man. You look at his face, bro. He's getting red as fuck. You got to take a fucking Xanny or something, bro. Chill the fuck out. Take a chill pill, man. This dude is fucking wild.
First Amendment killed him. Get rid of the Second Amendment. Get rid of the First Amendment. They're bad. They killed the kids too. George Washington killed him.
That you, Alex?
Yeah.
Oh, give me 2 seconds. My bad. All right, we're cutting the stream short.
Oh, dude, I didn't know you